The champagne tower at my cousin's wedding cost more than 6 months of my rent. I knew this because I'd helped pay for it $2,000 that I'd scraped together from double shifts at the diner. Money that was supposed to go toward fixing my car's transmission. But when family calls, when they say they need you, you say yes. Even when you know you shouldn't. Especially when you know you shouldn't. I sat at table 19, tucked in the back corner of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, so close to the kitchen doors that every time the catering staff rushed past with trays of hors d'oeuvres, I couldn't afford to eat. The swinging doors nearly hit my chair. The table was half empty, just me, 2 elderly great aunts who'd fallen asleep before the salad course, and a couple I didn't recognize who spent the entire evening arguing in whispered Italian. My cousin Rebecca looked like a princess in her Vera Wang gown, all silk and lace and 2 4-year-old confidence. Her new husband came from money real. Money. The kind that whispered rather than shouted. The kind that meant ice sculptures and live orchestras and seating charts that put family members like me as far from the action as possible without actually kicking us out. I left my daughter Mia with my neighbor Mrs. Chen 3 hours ago. My baby girl's disappointed face still burned in my memory. She'd wanted to come so badly, had begged to wear the lavender dress we'd found at the Goodwill on Amsterdam Avenue. But 4-year-olds and formal weddings didn't mix. And honestly, I couldn't afford the judgmental looks from my family about my daughter's thrift store clothes or her tendency to ask loud questions at inappropriate moments. Better to leave her home where she was safe, loved, and blissfully unaware that her mother was being treated like the help at her own cousin's wedding. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching. I love hearing from you. The scrutiny had started the moment I'd walked through those gilded doors at 7:30, alone. I am 26 years old. Single mother. Wearing a black dress I'd bought 2 years ago that still looked decent. If you didn't look too closely at the hem, I'd restitch twice. My Aunt Patricia had given me that smile, the one that managed to be both pitying and disapproving simultaneously. Jessica, darling, you came alone? We'd hoped you might bring someone. There are several eligible young men here from very good families. I forced a smile that made my face hurt. I'm fine, Aunt Patricia. Mia sends her love to Rebecca. Oh yes, the baby. The way my aunt said baby about my 4-year-old daughter spoke volumes. Still living in that tiny apartment in Washington Heights, I assume? Such a shame you couldn't finish your degree. They'd moved on before I could defend myself, circulating among guests who actually mattered. My mother's side of the family had always been like this, the ones who'd made it and the ones who hadn't, and I was very firmly in the latter category. I was the cautionary tale, the girl who'd gotten pregnant at 22 by a guy who'd disappeared the moment that second line appeared on the test, the one who'd dropped out of Columbia's social work program in her senior year because she couldn't afford childcare and tuition simultaneously, the one who now worked 50-hour weeks at a diner in Harlem, came home smelling like grease and coffee, and tried very hard not to calculate how many extra shifts I'd need to cover next month's rent. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen sending a photo of Mia asleep on her couch, clutching her stuffed elephant. The image made my chest ache. I should be home with her, not sitting in this marble palace pretending I belonged. Dinner had been interminable. 7 courses of food that probably cost more per plate than I spent on groceries in a month. The couple to my left discussed their summer home in the Hamptons. One of my distant cousins showed off an engagement ring that could have paid off my student loans twice over. I smiled and nodded and wished I'd had the courage to just stay home. Then came the dancing. The DJ announced the couple's first dance, and Rebecca floated across the floor in her new husband's arms, both of them glowing with that particular happiness that comes from never having worried about money. My parents danced next, my father uncomfortable in his rented tux. My mother beaming like this was her victory too. Even my younger sister Maya had found a partner, some investment banker with perfect teeth, and a watch that probably cost more than my car. Everyone was paired off. Everyone except me. I stood at the edge of the dance floor, trying to look like I was enjoying myself, trying not to be that pathetic single woman alone at a wedding. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Manhattan skyline glittering against the October night. The city looked beautiful from up here, clean and distant and nothing like the streets I walked every day. Still sitting this one out? The voice behind me made every muscle in my body tense. I turned to find Derek standing there, drink in hand, wearing that same smug expression he'd perfected over the years. Derek, my ex-boyfriend from college, the one who'd dumped me the week I'd told him I was pregnant, the one who'd told me I was ruining both our futures, the one who was now, apparently, dating my cousin Olivia based on how she'd been hanging on his arm all evening. I'm fine, thank you. I kept my voice level professional, the same tone I used with difficult customers at the diner. Come on, Jess, for old time's sake. He was using that boyish charm that had worked on me once upon a time. Before I'd realized charm was all he had to offer. We can be adults about this. We are adults. I'm declining your invitation. I turned back toward the dance floor, hoping he'd take the hint. He didn't. You know, Derek stepped closer, his breath sharp with expensive whiskey. You could have had all this. He gestured vaguely at the ballroom. If you'd just been reasonable about the situation. If you'd made the smart choice. The smart choice. He meant abortion. He'd never said it directly back then. Just kept talking about options and being realistic, and how we were too young to throw our lives away. He'd kept his Ivy League trajectory. Go back to Olivia, I said quietly, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Enjoy your evening. She's not as pretty as you were. Derek's voice dropped lower, intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. Before you let yourself go, before you got all, he gestured at me, at my body that had grown and birthed a child, at the exhaustion I carried in my shoulders. Tired. I should have walked away, should have been the bigger person, should have done anything other than stand there while rage and humiliation burned through my veins. That's enough. The new voice was quiet, but it cut through the music like a blade. I turned to find a man standing beside me, tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair and darker eyes that were currently fixed on Derek with an expression that made my ex-boyfriend take an involuntary step backward. The stranger wore a black suit that was so perfectly tailored it probably had its own zip code. Everything about him screamed money and power, from his Italian leather shoes to the watch on his wrist that I instinctively knew cost more than I made in a year. But it was his presence that really commanded attention, the way he stood like he owned not just the space he occupied, but every space within 100 feet. I don't think we've met, Derek said, trying to recover his confidence. I'm leaving. The stranger's voice was pleasant, conversational, and absolutely final. You're leaving. Something in his tone made Derek's face go pale. My ex looked between us, clearly trying to figure out who this man was and why he should be obeyed. Whatever calculation he made, Derek apparently decided not to argue. He walked away without another word, disappearing into the crowd near the bar. I stared at the stranger, my heart hammering. You didn't have to. Dance with me. It wasn't a question. He was already offering his hand, those dark eyes studying my face with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead sent a completely different kind of shiver down my spine. I don't even know you, I managed. Then we'll fix that. His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. I'm Alessandro Vitale, and you're the woman who's been sitting alone all evening, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. That obvious? Only to people who are paying attention. He kept his hand extended. One dance. Let everyone see that you're not alone, not forgotten, not whatever story they've been telling themselves about why. You're at table 19. The mention of my table number made me flinch. He'd noticed. He'd been watching. Why? I heard myself ask. Why would you do that for a stranger? Something flickered in his eyes. Maybe I don't like bullies. Maybe I recognize loneliness when I see it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Or maybe I just think you deserve better than being ignored at your own family's wedding. The smart answer was no. The safe answer was definitely no. This man was clearly dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical threat, and everything to do with the way he looked at me like he could see straight through every defense I'd spent years constructing. But the music was starting. Derek was watching from across the room with an expression I'd never seen before. And Alessandro Vitale was offering me his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I took it. His palm was warm against mine, his grip confident without being aggressive. He led me onto the dance floor with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, who knew exactly how to move through crowds that parted instinctively before him. His hand settled at the small of my back, burning through the thin fabric of my dress. His other hand clasped mine with surprising gentleness for someone built like he could break things without effort. You dance well, I said as we began moving to the music. My voice sounded breathless even to my own ears. My mother insisted on lessons. His expression remained neutral, but something softened when he mentioned her. She believed a man should know how to lead properly, to make his partner feel safe. Is she here tonight? She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. The words were matter of fact, but I caught the grief underneath. She would have liked you, though. You don't even know me. I know you came alone to a family wedding where everyone else is paired off. I know that man said something that made you want to disappear. I know you've been checking your phone every 15 minutes, probably thinking about leaving, probably worried about someone at home. His dark eyes met mine. Am I wrong? The accuracy stole my breath. That's very observant. I make it my business to observe. He guided me through a turn, the movement fluid and practiced, especially when something or someone catches my attention. Around us, I could feel eyes turning our way. My mother's eyebrows had climbed toward her hairline. Maya looked intrigued rather than judgmental for once. And Derek was staring from his position near the bar with an expression that might have been jealousy, or might have been fear. Your ex-boyfriend is very interested in our dance, Alessandro observed quietly. The way he looked at you earlier like he owned something he'd thrown away and suddenly wanted back. How do you know he's my ex? The way you tensed when he approached, the careful distance you maintained, the fact that he felt entitled, enough to insult you publicly. Alessandro's jaw tightened fractionally. Men like that are predictable. You don't know anything about him. I know he abandoned you when you needed him most. I know he's now dating someone in your family. And I know he's not worth the tears you've been holding back all evening. His voice remained level, but steel ran beneath the calm surface. Am I wrong about any of that? I couldn't answer. The words stuck in my throat, along with all the emotions I'd been suppressing since I walked through those gilded doors. I have a daughter, I said instead. The admission felt like armor, like warning. She's 4. I left her with a neighbor tonight because I couldn't afford to have her judged the way I'm being judged. Something shifted in Alessandro's expression. Not pity, I couldn't have tolerated pity. Something closer to respect. What's her name? Mia. She's cracked. My voice cracked. She's the best thing I've ever done. The only thing I've done right. Then you've done more right than most people manage in a lifetime. He pulled me slightly closer. Not inappropriately. Just enough that I could feel the solid warmth of him. A child raised by someone who works as hard as you do, who sacrifices as much as you have. That's not failure, Jessica. That's success they're too blind to recognize. How do you know my name? I heard your aunt say it earlier. Jessica. He said it like he was testing the shape of it. It suits you. The song shifted into something slower, more intimate. Couples pressed closer together. Alessandro's hand at my back remained exactly where it was, respectful, warm, steady. I should tell you something, I said, suddenly needing him to understand before this went any further. I don't have money. I work at a diner in Harlem. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment that I can barely afford. My daughter and I share a bedroom because I had to give her the living room so she'd have space to play. This dress is 2 years old. My shoes have been resold 3 times. I am not the kind of woman who belongs in your world. Alessandro was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd heard it yet. My mother grew up in Naples in a 1-room apartment with 7 siblings. She married my father when she was 19 and came to America with nothing but a suitcase and a dream of something better. He met my eyes. She taught me that the only thing that matters about a person is what they build with their own hands, what they sacrifice for the people they love. Everything else is just noise. Your father, what does he do? Something flickered across Alessandro's face. He runs a family business, import and export, among other things. The vagueness felt deliberate. We're well known in certain circles. Before I could press further, the song ended. Applause rippled through the ballroom. Alessandro released me slowly, as if reluctant to let go. Thank you for the dance, he said, formally. Then, quieter. And for reminding me what it feels like to have an honest conversation. He started to step away, and I felt panic flutter in my chest. This man who'd appeared out of nowhere, who'd defended me, who'd made me feel seen for the first time all evening, he was just going to walk away? Wait, I heard myself say. Alessandro turned back, one eyebrow raised in question. I fumbled for words. I don't know how to do this, how to talk to someone like you, how to be in spaces like this without feeling like an imposter. Then don't be in spaces like this. He stepped closer again, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cedar dark. Build your own spaces, ones where you make the rules, where your daughter can wear thrift store dresses and ask loud questions, where exhaustion from honest work is honored instead of hidden. That's a nice dream. Dreams only stay dreams if you don't fight for them. His dark eyes held mine. You strike me as someone who knows how to fight, Jessica. You're still standing, still working, still raising your daughter alone. That's not a weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. My throat tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to me. No one had ever looked at my life, my struggles, my failures, my desperate scrambling to keep my head above water, and called it strength. Alessandro Vitale, a booming voice cut through the moment. An older man in an expensive tux was approaching, hand extended, smiling wide and calculating. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. When did you and the Whitmore family become acquainted? Rebecca's new husband was named Whitmore. This man clearly knew it. Business associate of the groom's father, Alessandro said smoothly, shaking the man's hand with practiced ease. They invited me. I couldn't refuse. The older man's eyes slid to me, assessment obvious. And who is this lovely young woman? Jessica, Alessandro said, before I could answer. His hand found the small of my back again, possessive and protective at once. She's with me. The two words sent electricity down my spine. She's with me. The older man's demeanor changed instantly, not dismissive anymore, but respectful, even deferential. A pleasure to meet you, Jessica. Any friend of Alessandro's is always welcome. Please, let me know if you need anything this evening, anything at all. He disappeared back into the crowd, but not before shooting Alessandro, a look I couldn't quite read. What just happened? I whispered, once we were alone again. You just became someone people pay attention to. Alessandro's mouth curved in that almost smile, whether you wanted to or not. I should have walked away right then, should have thanked Alessandro for the dance, for the moment of feeling like I mattered, and returned to table 19 where I belonged. Should have collected my small clutch purse and caught the subway back to Washington Heights, back to my real life. Instead, I found myself following him toward the bar. The crowd parted for Alessandro, the way water parts around a stone, not dramatically, but inevitably, instinctively. People noticed him. More than that, they recognized him. And recognition brought something that looked a lot like fear, poorly disguised as respect. What would you like to drink? Alessandro asked, positioning himself between me and the rest of the room like a shield. Just water, thank you. I couldn't afford to get drunk. Couldn't afford to let my guard down any more than I already had. He ordered water for me and whiskey for himself. Neat. Something expensive. The bartender poured without asking for clarification. When he handed me the glass, our fingers brushed, and that same electric current I'd felt on the dance floor shot through me. You're staring at me differently now, Alessandro observed, those dark eyes studying my face. What changed? That man. I gestured vaguely toward where the gentleman had disappeared. The way he looked at you. The way everyone here looks at you. You're not just wealthy. You're something else. What do you think I am? The question felt like a test. I took a sip of water, buying time, trying to read the man in front of me. The expensive suit, the confidence that bordered on arrogance, the way people gave him space without being asked, the casual mention of family business that felt deliberately vague. I think, I said slowly, that you're someone who makes people nervous, someone whose name carries weight, someone who came to this wedding for reasons that have nothing to do with celebrating my cousin's marriage. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or recognition that I was smarter than he'd expected. Very observant, he said quietly. Most people don't ask questions. They just accept what they're told. I'm not most people. No, his gaze intensified. You're absolutely not. Before I could press further, my mother appeared at my elbow, all false smiles and barely concealed panic. Jessica, sweetie. She hooked her arm through mine with practiced ease, her grip tight enough to hurt. Could I speak with you for a moment? Privately? Alessandro stepped back, giving us space but not leaving. My mother's eyes darted to him, then back to me, fear and calculation warring in her expression. Mom, I'm talking to... Now, Jessica. Her voice carried an edge I recognized from childhood. The tone that meant, don't embarrass me, don't make a scene, do what you're told. She steered me toward a quiet alcove near the coat check, away from the music and laughter. My father materialized beside us, looking uncomfortable in his rented tux, sweat beading on his upper lip despite the air conditioning. Sweetheart, my mother began, her voice honey-sweet and urgent. Who is that man? Where did you meet him? At the wedding. He asked me to dance. That's all. That's all? My father spoke up for the first time, his voice rough. Jessica, that's Alessandro Vitale. The way he said the name like it carried weight, like it meant something, made my stomach tighten. So? My parents exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. Honey, my mother tried again. Alessandro Vitale is, well, he's connected to certain families, certain organizations that operate outside the law. The words hung in the air between us. Connected. Organizations. Outside the law. You mean the Mafia? I said it flatly, refusing to use euphemisms. My mother flinched. We don't use that word. But yes, essentially. The Vitale family has been involved in organized crime for 3 generations. Alessandro himself is rumored to control most of the construction contracts in Manhattan, along with other ventures we probably don't want to know about. My father leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. His father was Dominic Vitale. You wouldn't remember, but 15 years ago, there was a war between families. Dominic was killed, shot in broad daylight outside a restaurant in Little Italy. Alessandro took over when he was barely 21. He's been consolidating power ever since. The information should have terrified me, should have sent me running for the exit. Instead, I found myself thinking about Alessandro's hands, gentle when they'd held mine, steady when they'd guided me through the dance. About his voice when he'd mentioned his mother, soft with grief. About the way he'd looked at me like I was worth protecting. He's been nothing but respectful to me, I said quietly. For now. My mother's grip on my arm tightened. Jessica, men like that, they don't just dance with women at weddings out of kindness. They want something, and I will not let you drag yourself, and more importantly, Mia, into whatever dangerous world he inhabits. The mention of my daughter made anger flare hot in my chest. You don't get to use Mia as leverage. I pulled my arm free from my mother's grasp. You barely acknowledge she exists most of the time. You stuck me at table 19 like I'm something to be ashamed of. But now you care about my choices? Now you want to protect me? We're trying to help you, my father said, but he couldn't meet my eyes. By telling me to stay away from the first person all evening who's treated me like a human being? By making sure I know my place is in the back corner where people like you don't have to see me? That's not fair, my mother whispered. Fair? I laughed, the sound bitter. You want to talk about fair? I gave Rebecca $2,000 for this wedding. Money I needed for my car. Money I needed for Mia's preschool. But family helps family, right? Family shows up. I gestured toward the ballroom. And this is how you thank me. By shoving me in a corner and then panicking when someone actually notices I exist. Jessica Marie, I'm going back to my table. I cut my mother off. Or maybe I'll go. I haven't decided yet. But either way, you don't get to tell me who I can and cannot talk to. Not anymore. I walked away before they could argue, my hands shaking with adrenaline and anger. The ballroom felt too hot, too crowded, too full of people who saw me as either a charity case or a cautionary tale. Alessandro was exactly where I'd left him, leaning against the bar with his whiskey glass, watching the crowd with the detached interest of someone studying insects under glass. When he saw me approaching, something in his expression shifted concern, maybe, or recognition of the storm in my eyes. That looked unpleasant, he observed. They told me who you are. I stopped in front of him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. What you are. And I'm trying to decide if I should be scared. Alessandro set down his glass with careful precision. Are you? Scared? I studied him, really studied him. The expensive suit, the confident posture, the way violence seemed to hover around him like a second skin. He was dangerous. Everything about him screamed danger, but danger came in different forms. Derek had been dangerous in his casual cruelty, his ability to make me feel worthless with just a look. My family was dangerous in their conditional love, their willingness to use me when convenient and discard me when I became an embarrassment. Alessandro had been nothing but honest. He'd protected me from Derek. He'd danced with me when I was alone. He'd looked at my life single mother, struggling, exhausted, and called it strength instead of failure. No, I said finally. I'm not scared of you. I probably should be, but I'm not. Something in his expression softened. Good, because I have a proposition for you, Jessica. What kind of proposition? He glanced around the ballroom at my family, clustered near the windows, whispering frantically. At Derek, watching us from across the room. At Rebecca, and her new husband cutting the elaborate cake surrounded by people who'd never worried about rent or grocery bills. "Pretend to be with me," Alessandro said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Not just for tonight, for a few weeks. Let your family see that you're not alone. Let them believe you've found someone who values you. And in return, I'll make sure they never treat you like something disposable again." "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm tired of being alone at events where everyone wants something from me. Because my family won't stop trying to arrange marriages with women who see me as a transaction rather than a person." He paused. "And because you remind me of someone I failed to protect once. Someone who deserved better than what the world gave her. His mother." He was talking about his mother. "This is insane," I whispered. "Probably." His mouth curved in that almost smile. "But the alternative is you go back to table 19. Finish out this wedding alone, and nothing changes. Your family keeps treating you like a burden. You keep working yourself to exhaustion, and we both stay exactly as lonely as we were before tonight. And if I say yes, what happens when this arrangement ends?" "Then we walk away. Clean break. No drama. No obligations." He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket, holding it out to me. "Think about it. You don't have to decide tonight." I took the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Alessandro Vitale. A phone number. Nothing else. "I have a 4-year-old daughter," I said, needing him to understand. "She can't know about this. I won't confuse her with fake relationships, or introduce her to someone who's going to disappear in a few weeks." "Agreed. This stays between adults." Alessandro's expression turned serious. "And Jessica? If you decide yes, I need you to understand something. My world isn't safe. There are people who would hurt you just to get to me. There are consequences to being seen with someone like me that go far beyond making your family jealous. Then why offer? Because maybe I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story." His voice dropped, raw and honest. "Maybe I want to see if I remember how to be something else. And maybe you're the only person in this entire ballroom who's brave enough to see past what I am to who I could be." The weight of his words settled between us like snow, quiet, heavy, transforming everything. The DJ announced the bouquet toss. Single women began gathering near the dance floor, giggling and jostling for position. Someone called my name Maya, gesturing for me to join them. I looked at Alessandro, at this dangerous man offering me a dangerous deal, at the business card in my hand that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I need to think about it," I said. "Take your time." He stepped back, giving me space. "But Jessica, whatever you decide, thank you for tonight. For the dance, for the conversation, for reminding me what honest feels like." He walked away, before I could respond, disappearing into the crowd with the same easy confidence he'd shown all evening. People parted for him instinctively, giving him the space that came with fear disguised as respect. I stood near the bar, clutching his card, while my cousin threw her bouquet and some girl I didn't recognize caught it with a squeal of delight. The music swelled. People danced and laughed and celebrated a love that looked perfect from the outside, and I made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to the number on the card. "Yes." His response came 30 seconds later. "Meet me outside in 5 minutes. We should talk properly." The October air bit at my bare arms when I stepped out of the plaza. The street was busy with typical Saturday night traffic taxis honking, people walking past in expensive coats, the city alive and indifferent to whatever drama unfolded in its gilded ballrooms. Alessandro stood near a black SUV with tinted windows, speaking quietly to a man I hadn't seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of alertness that suggested military training or something similar. A driver, maybe, or security. When Alessandro saw me, he said something to the man, who nodded and moved to lean against the vehicle, giving us privacy while maintaining a clear line of sight. "You said yes." Alessandro's voice carried something I couldn't quite identify. Relief, maybe. Or surprise. "I did." I wrapped my arms around myself against the cold. "But I need you to understand something first. I've spent 4 years sacrificing everything for my daughter. My education, my social life, any chance at a relationship that wasn't complicated by the fact that I come with a child and a mountain of responsibilities. I've made peace with that. I chose her, and I'd choose her again every single time." "I know. Let me finish." I met his eyes. "I'm saying yes because I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of people like Derek treating me like I'm worth less because I made choices they didn't approve of. I'm tired of my family shoving me in corners and then pretending they care about my well-being when it's convenient for them. I took a breath. But the moment this arrangement puts Mia at risk, the moment it becomes complicated in ways that could hurt her, I'm out. No discussion, no negotiation. She comes first. Always. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd heard it all evening. My mother raised me to believe that children are sacred, that protecting them, providing for them, sacrificing for them, that's not a burden or obligation. It's the highest calling there is. He stepped closer. I would never put your daughter at risk, Jessica. You have my word. And in my world, my word is the only currency that actually matters. Why me? I asked. Really? You could have any woman in that ballroom. Women with money, connections, no complications. Why choose? The single mother at table 19? Because every other woman in that ballroom would see me as an opportunity. A chance to climb higher, secure their future, gain access to power. His dark eyes held mine. You see me as a risk. And somehow, that's infinitely more honest. A taxi honked. Someone laughed too loud, stumbling past in designer heels. The city hummed around us, oblivious. So how does this work? I asked. This arrangement? We exchange numbers. We coordinate schedules. In 2 weeks, there's a charity gala black tie. Very visible. Exactly the kind of event where being seen together would make a statement. He paused. Between now and then, we meet a few times. Coffee, maybe dinner. Public enough that people notice. Private enough that we can actually talk without performance. And we just pretend to be together? We don't have to pretend anything. Alessandro's voice was careful. We just have to not deny it when people make assumptions. Let them think what they actually want. Occasionally be seen in the same place at the same time. That's all. That's all, I repeated, though we both knew it was anything but simple. Jessica. He waited until I looked at him. If you want to walk away right now, I understand. This is asking a lot. Asking you to step into a world that's already judging you, with a man whose reputation precedes him. I won't be angry if you change your mind. I thought about table 19, about Derek's casual cruelty, about my mother's disapproving looks and my father's inability to meet my eyes, about going home to my one-bedroom apartment where my daughter slept in the living room because I couldn't afford anything bigger. I thought about Alessandro's hands, gentle when they'd held mine, about his voice when he'd called my life strength instead of failure, about the way he'd looked at me like I was worth protecting, worth seeing, worth more than the corner they'd stuck me in. I'm not changing my mind, I said. Something shifted in his expression, relief, definitely, and something else, something that looked like hope. Then give me your phone. I handed it over. He typed quickly, then called himself so he'd have my number too. When he gave it back, I saw he'd saved his contact under just Alessandro. No last name, no title, just the person beneath the reputation. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. We'll figure out the details. For now, you should probably go back inside. Your family will worry if you're gone too long. Will they? Worry? The bitterness slipped out before I could stop it. They'll wonder. Alessandro's mouth curved in that almost smile. And wondering is the first step toward actually paying attention. He was right. When I walked back into the ballroom 10 minutes later, my mother practically pounced. Where were you? Getting some air. With him? She said it like Alessandro was a disease I might catch. That's none of your business, Mom. Her face tightened. Jessica, I really think. I'm going home. I cut her off. It's late. I need to check on Mia. Thank you for inviting me. The wedding was lovely. I walked away before she could argue, collecting my clutch from table 19 one last time. As I headed for the exit, I caught Alessandro's eye across the ballroom. He was speaking with someone, but his gaze found mine unerringly. He raised his whiskey glass in the smallest of salutes. I smiled a real smile, the first one all evening that didn't hurt my face. Then I left the plaza, caught the subway uptown, and went home to my real life, to my daughter sleeping peacefully at Mrs. Chen's apartment, to my tiny space in Washington Heights that smelled like old radiator heat and hope. But in my purse, Alessandro's business card felt like a promise, or maybe a threat. Either way, I'd said yes, and there was no going back from that. Funday morning arrived with Mia bouncing on my bed at 7 a.m., her dark curls wild from sleep, her stuffed elephant clutched in one hand. Mama! Mama, wake up! Mrs. Chen made pancakes. I dragged myself out of the pleasant fog of exhaustion. I'd gotten home past midnight, paid Mrs. Chen with money I couldn't afford, and fallen into bed without even changing out of my dress. Now Mia's enthusiasm felt like both a blessing and an assault on my tired brain. Baby, it's fun day. We can sleep in. But Mrs. Chen made pancakes. Mia emphasized this like it was the most important information in the universe, with chocolate chips. She saved us some. I couldn't argue with chocolate chip pancakes. Besides, Mia's joy was infectious, her entire 4-year-old being vibrating with excitement over this small kindness from our neighbor. We ate pancakes at Mrs. Chen's tiny kitchen table, Mia chattering about the movie they'd watched last night, Mrs. Chen asking gentle questions about the wedding that I deflected with vague pleasantries. When we finally made it back to our apartment, Mia wanted to draw pictures of fancy dresses and dancing, while I tried to do laundry and meal prep and all the other tasks that filled the small spaces between exhaustion. My phone rang at 11. Alessandro's name on the screen made my heart stutter. I glanced at Mia, absorbed in coloring, and stepped into the bathroom for privacy. Hello? Jessica. Did I wake you? His voice sounded different over the phone, still confident, but somehow more intimate, like he was closer than the miles that separated us. No, I've been up for hours. My daughter is an early riser. Mia. He said her name like he was committing it to memory. 4 years old. Loves drawing and asking questions. You remembered. I pay attention when people tell me things that matter. A pause. How are you feeling this morning? Any regrets about last night? I thought about it, really thought about it. About the dance, the conversation, the business card, the text message. About saying yes to something that logic screamed was dangerous. No regrets, I said. Finally. Concerns maybe. Questions, definitely. But no regrets. Good. I could hear the smile in his voice. Because I'd like to take you to dinner. Tuesday night, if you're free. Somewhere quiet where we can talk properly. Discuss how this arrangement might work. Tuesday I have to work until 5. Then 6:30? I'll send a car. You give me an address, and my driver will pick you up. The offer was casual, but the implications weren't. Giving him my address meant letting him know where I lived. Meant allowing someone from his world to enter mine. Meant trusting him in ways that went beyond a dance at a wedding. Jessica? His voice gentled. If you're not comfortable, we can meet somewhere public instead. A restaurant you choose. I don't want you to feel... I live at 504 West 172nd Street, I heard myself say. Apartment 3B. It's a walk-up. Not fancy. I don't care about fancy. Something in his tone made me believe him. I care about making sure you feel safe. That's all. That matters. We talked for another 15 minutes. Logistics, expectations, the charity gala in 2 weeks that would be our first major public appearance. He was careful not to push, letting me set boundaries, offering options instead of demands. When we finally hung up, I stood in my tiny bathroom staring at myself in the mirror. Same face as yesterday. Same tired eyes. Same exhaustion in the set of my shoulders. But something felt different. For the first time in 4 years, I felt like I was making a choice for myself instead of just surviving the choices other people had made for me. Mama? Mia appeared in the bathroom doorway, elephant tucked under her arm. Who were you talking to? Just a friend, baby. A friend from the wedding? God. She was smart. Too smart for 4. Yes, from the wedding. Was the wedding pretty? It was very pretty. I crouched to her level, pushing curls back from her forehead. But not as pretty as you, she giggled. That pure sound that made everything, the exhaustion, the struggle, the constant worry worth it. Can we go to the park? She asked. Please? It's sunny and I want to go on the swings. Let me change out of my pajamas first. We spent fun day afternoon at Riverside Park, Mia running from the swings to the slide to the monkey bars with inexhaustible energy. I pushed her on the swings until my arms ached, built sandcastles in the playground sand area, and watched her make friends with other kids with the easy openness of childhood. My phone buzzed with text messages I ignored. My mother, wanting to talk. Maya, asking questions about Alessandro. Even Rebecca, my cousin, sending emoji-filled message that basically said, "Who was that hot guy you were dancing with?" I didn't answer any of them. For one afternoon, I let myself just be mom. Just exist in this pocket of normalcy, where the biggest crisis was Mia dropping her elephant in a puddle and needing extensive consoling. When we got home around 4, exhausted and happy, I finally checked my messages properly. One from Alessandro, simple and direct. Looking forward to Tuesday. Sleep well. Something about the simplicity made me smile. Monday came with its usual chaos. I dropped Mia at her pre-K program at 7, caught the subway to the diner in Harlem, and worked an 8-hour shift that felt like 12. The diner was always busy on Mondays, people needing coffee to face the week, regulars who'd been coming for years, the occasional tourist who wandered in looking for authentic New York. I poured coffee, took orders, delivered plates of eggs and bacon, and tried not to think about Tuesday, about dinner with Alessandro, about stepping further into this arrangement that felt both thrilling and terrifying. My manager, Tony, caught me staring into space around 2 p.m. "You okay, Jess? You seem distracted." "Just tired. Wedding this weekend." "Family wedding?" At my nod, he grimaced sympathetically. "Those are always exhausting. All that performance, all those questions about your life." "Exactly." He studied me for a moment. Tony had been my manager for 3 years. He'd given me this job when I was pregnant and desperate, had worked around my childcare schedule, had never made me feel like my single parenthood was an inconvenience. "You got that look," he said finally. "What look?" "The look people get when they're about to make a big decision. Something that changes things." He smiled. "I've seen it before, usually right before people quit or propose or move across the country. I'm not doing any of those things. Maybe, but something's different." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "Just remember you got people who care about you, Jess. Whatever you're thinking about, whatever's happening, you're not alone, okay?" The kindness made my throat tight. "Thanks, Tony." I picked up Mia from Mrs. Chen at 6, made dinner, did bath time and bedtime stories, and collapsed on my couch around 8 with a cup of tea and too many thoughts. My phone rang. Alessandro again. "You keep good hours," I said instead of hello. "I'm nocturnal. Comes with the territory." I could hear traffic in the background. "Are we still on for tomorrow?" "Yes, unless you've changed your mind." "Not even remotely." A pause. "Jessica, I should tell you something before tomorrow, about what to expect." My stomach tightened. "Okay. When my driver picks you up, there will probably be people who notice. My world isn't subtle. People pay attention to where I go, who I'm with, what I'm doing." His voice carried warning. "I'm telling you this because I want you prepared. Tomorrow starts the performance, whether we're ready or not. People will see the car. People will see everything. The car, the restaurant, you and I together. By Wednesday morning, half of Manhattan will know Alessandro Vitale is seeing someone new." He paused. "If that's too much, if you want to pull back, I don't want to pull back." The words came out more certain than I felt. But I'd said yes. I'd agreed to this. And backing out now, letting fear win, felt like returning to table 19, to being invisible, to accepting that people like me didn't get to be seen. "Then I'll see you tomorrow at 6:30. Alessandro's voice warmed. "Wear whatever makes you comfortable. This isn't about impressing anyone. It's just dinner. Just dinner. With a man whose name made my parents go pale, whose world operated outside the law, whose driver would pick me up in a car that probably cost more than I made in 5 years. Just dinner." I laughed, and Alessandro laughed with me, the sound rich and genuine. "Get some sleep, Jessica." "You too. I don't sleep much. Hazard of the lifestyle." "Then at least try." "For you?" His voice dropped, intimate. "I'll try." The line went dead. I sat on my couch in my tiny apartment, surrounded by Mia's toys and the life I'd built from nothing, and wondered what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Tuesday. The morning brought rain, the cold October kind, that soaked through jackets and made the city smell like wet concrete and regret. I worked my shift at the diner on autopilot, my mind already racing ahead to 6:30, to the car that would arrive, to dinner with Alessandro, Tony noticed. "Big date tonight?" "Something like that." "The look is stronger." He grinned. "Definitely a date. Good for you, Jess. You deserve something good. If only he knew how complicated good had become. I left work at 5, picked up Mia from Mrs. Chen, and had 45 minutes to transform from exhausted diner waitress to whatever version of myself could have dinner with Alessandro Vitale. I showered quickly while Mia played with her blocks, stared at my closet, mostly work clothes and casual basics, and tried to figure out what comfortable meant in this context. Finally settled on dark jeans and a forest green sweater that was a few years old but still looked decent. Minimal makeup, hair left down, slightly damp from the shower. When I emerged from the bathroom, Mia looked up from her blocks with wide eyes. "Mama, you look pretty." "Thank you, baby. Where are you going?" The question I'd been dreading. "Mama has to go to a work dinner. Mrs. Chen is going to watch you for a few hours." "Again?" Her face fell. "You're always working." The words hit like a punch, because she was right. I was always working at the diner, at being her mother, at surviving. When was the last time I'd done something just for myself? "I know, sweetheart, but Mrs. Chen said you could watch 2 movies tonight, and I'll be home before bedtime. I promise." Mrs. Chen arrived at 6:20. I kissed Mia goodbye, trying not to let guilt swallow me whole, and waited by the window, watching the rain-slicked street below. At exactly 6:30, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Sleek, expensive, tinted windows that reflected the streetlights. A man in a dark suit got out from the driver's side, not Alessandro, but someone who moved with the same controlled alertness I'd noticed Saturday night. My phone buzzed. "Alessandro. He's here. His name is Marco. He'll take care of you." I grabbed my purse, double-checked I had my keys and phone, and headed downstairs. By the time I reached the building's entrance, Marco had opened the back door of the SUV, holding an umbrella despite the fact that he was getting soaked. "Miss Carter." His voice was respectful, his expression neutral. "Mr. Vitale is waiting." I climbed into the SUV. The interior was all leather and dark wood, warm despite the rain, smelling like expensive cologne, and something else, gun oil maybe, though I wasn't sure how I recognized that scent. Alessandro sat in the far corner, focused on his phone. When he looked up and saw me, whatever he'd been reading was immediately forgotten. "Jessica." He said my name like it mattered. "You look beautiful." I look like I just finished an 8-hour shift at a diner and had 42 minutes to get ready. "You look real." He slipped his phone into his jacket pocket. "That's infinitely better than beautiful." The SUV pulled away from the curb, Marco driving with confident efficiency through Manhattan's rain-soaked streets. I watched the city slide past the tinted windows, my neighborhood giving way to Midtown, then toward somewhere I didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" I asked. "A place in Tribeca. Small, private. The owner owes me a favor." Alessandro's mouth curved. "Which means we can actually talk without every table around us trying to eavesdrop." "Do people usually eavesdrop on you?" "Constantly." He shifted slightly, turning to face me more fully. "Information is currency in my world. Knowing who I'm with, what I'm doing, what weaknesses I might have that's valuable to the right people. And I'm a weakness now?" Something flickered in his eyes. "You're going to be perceived as one. Whether you actually are remains to be seen. The honesty should. I have scared me." Instead, it felt like the most respectful thing anyone had said to me in years. The restaurant was exactly as he'd described, small, intimate, tucked into a Tribeca side street that looked like it belonged in a European city rather than Manhattan. The rain had softened to a mist. Marco held the umbrella again as Alessandro helped me from the SUV, his hand warm and steady against mine. Inside, the maitre d' greeted Alessandro by name, led us to a corner table that offered privacy and a view of the rest of the room. No menus appeared. Apparently, when Alessandro Vitale came to dinner, the chef decided what you'd eat. "Wine?" Alessandro asked once we were alone. "Just water, thank you. I need to stay clear-headed." He ordered sparkling water for me, wine for himself, and then we sat in that comfortable silence that happens between people who've already said the hard things. "Tell me about Mia," Alessandro said finally. "What does she like? What makes her laugh?" The question surprised me. Most people asked about my daughter out of obligation. Alessandro sounded genuinely curious. "She loves drawing," I said, warming to the topic. "Mostly animals, horses, and elephants, and these impossible hybrid creatures she invents. She's constantly asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Where do pigeons sleep? How do elevators work?" I smiled, thinking about this morning's interrogation about why rain falls down instead of up. "She's exhausting and brilliant and the best thing I've ever done." "You said that Saturday night too." Alessandro's voice was soft. "About her being the best thing. You really believe that?" "Of course. Don't you believe the best things we do are the ones that cost us the most?" Something in his expression shifted, pain maybe, or recognition. My mother would have said the same thing. She used to tell me that anything worth having requires sacrifice, that easy things are rarely meaningful. "Your mother sounds like..." She was wise. She was, and stubborn, and fierce about protecting the people she loved. He paused, his wine glass turning slowly in his hand. She died 2 years ago. Cancer. I had 6 months to say goodbye, and it still wasn't enough time. The grief in his voice was raw, unguarded. I reached across the table without thinking, my hand covering his. I'm so sorry. He looked down at my hand on his, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then his fingers turned, lacing with mine, holding on like I was an anchor in rough water. She would have liked you, he said quietly. She always said the strongest people were the ones who kept going even when the world told them to stop. You kept Mia when everyone probably told you not to. You work multiple jobs to give her a life. You show up at family weddings even when they treat you like you're disposable. His dark eyes met mine. That's the kind of strength my mother respected. The food arrived, small plates of things I didn't recognize, but tasted incredible. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily from his mother to my daughter to the 1,000 small details that make up a life. He asked about my work at the diner, seemed genuinely interested in Tony and the regulars, and the rhythm of serving coffee to New Yorkers who always needed it stronger and faster. I asked about his business carefully, not pushing, and he gave me the sanitized version. Restaurants, construction contracts, import, export, other ventures that he described vaguely, making it clear those were the parts that operated in shadows. Does it bother you? He asked. What I do, who I am. I thought about it carefully. I think it should bother me more than it does. I think I should be scared or morally outraged or something. I met his eyes, but mostly I just see someone trying to survive a world he was born into. Someone who protects the people he cares about. Someone who's been lonely for a long time. Alessandro was quiet for so long, I thought I'd overstepped. Then, you see too much. Is that a bad thing? It's dangerous. But his hand tightened on mine. People who see me clearly usually end up disappointed. Or worse. Then I guess we'll find out which one I am. We finished dinner as the rain picked up outside, hammering against the windows. The restaurant had emptied gradually, other diners leaving, staff cleaning quietly in the background. I glanced at my phone and realized with shock that 3 hours had passed. I need to get home, I said reluctantly. I promised Mia I'd be back before bedtime. Of course. Alessandro signaled for the check, though I suspected there wouldn't actually be one, and helped me with my jacket. His hands lingered on my shoulders for just a moment. Thank you for tonight. I should be thanking you. That meal probably cost more than I make in a month. I'm not talking about the meal. His voice dropped lower. I'm talking about 3 hours of conversation with someone who doesn't want anything from me except honest answers. That's rarer than you'd think. Marco appeared with the umbrella. The SUV was already waiting at the curb, engine running, warm and dry against the October rain. The drive back to Washington Heights felt shorter than the drive down. Or maybe I just wasn't ready for the evening to end. Alessandro sat close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, far enough that I never felt crowded. When Marco pulled up to my building, Alessandro turned to me. Saturday, the charity gala. It's formal black tie. I'll send a car at 7. He paused. And Jessica, I'll have something delivered for you to wear. Please don't argue. You'll need something that makes a statement, and I want to provide it. I should have argued, should have insisted I could find my own dress. But the truth was, I couldn't afford the kind of dress that would be appropriate for a black tie charity gala. And we both knew it. Okay, I said quietly. One more thing. Alessandro reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Not his, a new one, still in the box. For you. My number is already programmed. So is Marco's. If you ever need anything at all, you call. Day or night. Doesn't matter what it is. Alessandro, I can't. You can. And you will. His voice was gentle but firm. Because the moment we walk into that gala together on Saturday, you become visible in ways that go beyond your family noticing you. People in my world will see you, and some of them will wonder if you're a weakness they can exploit. I need to be able to reach you, and you need to be able to reach me. The weight of what he was saying finally sank in. This wasn't just about making my family jealous anymore. This was about stepping into a world where being seen came with real danger. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you smart. He pressed the phone into my hands. But I promise you, Jessica, as long as you're with me, no one will touch you. You have my word. I took the phone, held it like the lifeline it might become. I should go. Mia's waiting. Of course. Alessandro opened the door, stepped out into the rain with Marco's umbrella, then helped me out. He walked me to my building's entrance, water soaking his expensive shoes. Good night, Jessica. Good night, Alessandro. I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment, let myself in, found Mia asleep on Mrs. Chen's lap, while some animated movie played quietly on the TV, paid Mrs. Chen, carried my daughter to bed, and stood in my tiny bathroom staring at the phone Alessandro had given me. My real life and his dangerous world had just collided, and there was no going back from that. Saturday arrived with autumn sunshine that felt like mockery. I'd spent the week in a fog working shifts at the diner, caring for Mia, pretending everything was normal while a designer dress hung in my closet, and a phone with Alessandro's number sat charged on my nightstand. The dress had. It arrived Thursday in a box so elegant I was afraid to open it. Black silk that pooled like water. A neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. Fabric that whispered money in ways I'd never experienced. Shoes that actually fit. A clutch that matched perfectly. Mrs. Chen had agreed to keep Mia overnight, an unprecedented arrangement that had cost me extra money I didn't have, and guilt I couldn't shake. Mama, you look like a princess, Mia breathed when I emerged from the bathroom at 6:30, transformed. Just for tonight, baby. Like Cinderella? Close enough. Except my prince was a mob boss and midnight would bring consequences I couldn't predict. Marco arrived at 7 exactly. The drive to the Pierre Hotel felt like descending into another world, one where wealth and danger danced together in $1,000 suits. Alessandro waited in the lobby, devastating in his tuxedo. When he saw me, something flickered across his face that made my breath catch. You're stunning, he said simply. I'm terrified. Then we match. He offered his arm. Shall we? The ballroom glittered with Manhattan's elite politicians, businessmen, society wives dripping in diamonds. Eyes turned as we entered. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. Alessandro's hand settled at the small of my back, possessive and protective. Breathe, he murmured. You belong here as much as anyone. But I didn't. I was a waitress from Washington Heights in borrowed silk, pretending to be someone who mattered to a man who terrified half the city. Then I saw them, my parents, my sister Maya, even Derek with Olivia. Their faces registered shock, then calculation, then something like fear. For the first time in years, they saw me. Dance with me, Alessandro said. We moved onto the floor, and the room fell away. His hand was warm against my waist, his dark eyes holding mine with an intensity that felt like falling. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For making me visible. Jessica. His voice was rough. You were always visible. You just needed someone brave enough to look. Something shifted in that moment, something real beneath the arrangement, beneath the performance. His hand tightened on mine. My breath caught. This was supposed to be fake, but the way he looked at me felt devastatingly real. The evening blurred introductions to people whose names I'd forget, champagne I barely touched, Alessandro's presence beside me like a shield. My family kept their distance, except Maya, who cornered me near the restrooms. Jesus, Jess. Alessandro Vitale? Are you insane? Maybe. He's dangerous. You know that, right? So is being invisible. I met her eyes. I'm tired of being the family shame. Just for once, I want to matter. You've always mattered. To who? Mom and Dad stuck me at table 19. Derek treated me like garbage. Rebecca took my money and gave me nothing. Anger bubbled up. Alessandro is the first person in years who's treated me like I'm worth something. So yes, maybe I'm insane, but at least I'm finally living. Maya stared at me, then hugged me tight. Just be careful. Please. When I returned to the ballroom, Alessandro was waiting. Everything okay? Family drama. The usual. Want to leave? I looked around at the glittering crowd, at my parents watching nervously, at Derek's jealous stare, at Alessandro beside me, solid and real. No, I said. I want to stay. We stayed until midnight. When Marco finally drove us back uptown, Alessandro walked me to my door again. Thank you for tonight, he said. I should be thanking you, Jessica. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. This arrangement, it's not working. My heart stopped. What? I can't pretend anymore. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I can't pretend this is fake when everything I feel is real. Alessandro, I know it's too fast. I know it's complicated. But when I'm with you, I remember who I wanted to be before the world told me what I had to be. His voice dropped to a whisper. You make me want to be better. I should have said no. Should have protected my heart, my daughter, my carefully constructed life. Instead, I kissed him. His arms came around me, holding me like I was precious, like I was worth protecting, like I was enough exactly as I was. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. I want to do this right, he said. Meet Mia when you're ready. Build something real. No arrangement. No performance. Just us. That's terrifying. I know. My life is complicated. So is mine. People will think I'm with you for your money. Let them. Think what they want. He kissed me again. Softer. I know the truth. That's all that matters. I unlocked my door with shaking hands. Turned back one more time. Alessandro, I'm still scared. Good. That means you're smart. He smiled that real smile I'd only seen glimpses of. But maybe we can be scared together. I watched him walk away, then close the door on my old life. Tomorrow I'd pick up Mia and figure out how to explain that Mama met someone dangerous and complicated and real. But tonight, I stood in my tiny apartment wearing a dress that cost more than my rent, touched my lips where Alessandro had kissed me, and let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, girls from Washington Heights got happy endings too, even if they looked nothing like the fairy tales.